Greetings, Barbara E. Ringrose. I'm the founder of Wow Women Optimizing Women. You can find my location at wowwomenus.com. Also co-creator along with LaQuincia Nichols here with me tonight. And she is the founder of experience-coaching.com. You can view her website as well. And we enjoy having you as our audience at Optimizing Her Too. Tonight we have special guests, which is the Reverend Elizabeth Gifford Maffei. And she is coming to you from Florida, where I'm in Manchester, Maryland. Quincy's over in Surprise, Arizona. So it's kind of nice that we have this little triangle thing going on here this evening. This Optimize Her Too podcast is all about educating and elevating as well as empowering women. However, we know, gentlemen, you like to watch us here too. So we thank you. We welcome you. Please remember to like, share, and follow. If you have a comment about what we're doing here on Optimize Her Too, we so appreciate that. So today is going to shift a little bit differently. A lot of times we talk to professional business when we talk about success and all those different things that happen in the business world, because so many high achieving women, they want to know these things. They're looking for someone to help them, guide them. We're all trying to do everything right. We're showing up, we're working hard, we're pushing forward, and women can feel stuck. And I get that. I think it's really important, and this isn't the first time that I've heard about people feeling stuck in recent conversations. So again, welcome, ladies. And Quincy, please say hello to everyone.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here and have the Reverend here to really share some information with our audience. And Barb, you talk about feeling stuck. I think sometimes we have to remember that can also sometimes sound like overwhelm, or they feel like they've hit a plateau that they just can't break through. And I think Elizabeth is going to provide us with some really unique tips, tools, and strategies, ways that we would like to practically feed our audience and really help you all get better. So I would love for you, Barb, to just share a little bit more about Elizabeth and what she's sharing with us today.
And the cool thing is, again, we were talking about podcasts before we kind of got together here this evening. And I thought about what we do in the community we're serving. And Elizabeth is also doing podcasting and different things. And she's helping individuals and couples that are having difficulty uncovering and releasing these deeply held emotional patterns that are stored from within. Patterns that quietly drive stress. And all of us are always talking about stress. It's always in every conversation. It seems like, or any pain or repeated life challenges. I did a lot of things over and over again. So I'm trying to get it right here, Reverend. So I thank you, Elizabeth, for coming and joining us. This is amazing. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure to be here, to be on this beautiful platform that reaches so many people. And that's what we're all about, right? Each of us is to be able to help and empower others. So thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And what's so powerful about today's conversation is that it's not about doing more. It's really about understanding what is beneath the surface. So, Barb, as you talked about, how can we break out of some of those patterns? So go ahead.
Yeah, those hidden emotional patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I know they've affected me behind those success plateaus.
Yeah.
And, that pushing harder. I got to work more. I got to work harder. I got to work longer hours. And then we create some sort of breakthrough. And interesting how this has come up again, how listening deeper can also unlock a new clarity and growth. So, Elizabeth, again, welcome to Optimize Her Too.
My honor. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
So, Elizabeth, I'm so excited to jump in and start this conversation with you. So I'm always saying, let's get sort of grounded in understanding who you are, how'd you get here? So your work is unique and it's deeply impactful. What led you to helping people uncover and release emotional patterns stored in the body? Not sure someone said, when I'm a little girl at 5 years old, that's what I'm raising my hand to do. So how'd you get there?
I love that. That's great. Well, for me, this work really became personal before it even became professional. And I could see how emotions that weren't fully processed didn't disappear. They actually stayed. And over time, they became the way and shaped how I felt, how I showed up, even what I believe was possible. And if I might, I'll take just a brief second to tell a little story because I think it helps us to kind of pull things together. May I
For
do
sure.
that?
Yes,
Of
please.
course.
Okay, great. So when I was 2 years old, and I've told the story before, when I was 2 years old, I almost died. I was in the hospital and I had this very strange virus. And I can actually recall things that happened to me during that time. I can recall the nurse and they gave me a little stuffed dog, and maybe that's why I love dogs to this day, right? And then several years later, when I was 5 or 6, I became very shy, just super shy. My dad would take me shopping every Saturday, and I would hide behind him. And somehow or other, it just clicked for me that I put those two experiences together. And that feeling of being vulnerable at the age of 2, even though I remembered the scenes, I didn't remember the emotions. But that transferred later in life to being really shy. And believe it or not, I was very shy even as a young adult. So, you know, as I went deeper, I realized that the body holds on to these experiences in a very, very real way. And when I began working with that, not just the mindset, because we've all done a lot of work and we still need to do that mindset work, right? But it was what was stored underneath. And that's what led me here.
And that can
Wow.
be very deep, depending on what those experiences were. We've had people talk about traumatic experiences, and sometimes it may not even have been traumatic to others. To us, it is still a source of trauma. So there's hidden reasons, as you said. So many successful business women. I remember when I worked with several successful college professors, they were females, that the men that were in their life didn't have the same capacity job, if you will, and those women felt overwhelmed or plateaued. Are you seeing that in professional business women today?
Absolutely. And it's really not, we think it's a strategy issue. Like we started out talking about, well, we push and push and push. It's not a strategy issue. I think this is really important to hear. It's an internal safety issue.
Hmm,
So when our nervous system doesn't feel safe with more visibility or more income or more responsibility, it really starts to slow things down, but it's not conscious. This is not conscious thought. So when everything looks like it's kind of aligned, on the outside, there can be these internal patterns that are being quietly held in place. So again, we may not be consciously aware of it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because my next question was going to be, can you give a little clarity about what the sort of hidden emotional patterns means? I think a lot of us think we are very much aware of our emotions sometimes, and we may be, but oftentimes there could be a deeper reason why we're showing up in a certain way. Could you clarify for some of our listeners, like practically, what or how do these patterns show up in their everyday business or life?
I love that. So it's hidden emotional patterns are when the body creates an emotional response, right? You create something and then there's a response. You do something and then you try and reach a goal, you take a step forward and then you get the feedback, right? Your body creates an emotional response to an experience. And, Barbara, like you were saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic or seem like it's traumatic to someone else. It could be something that was triggered within you. That emotional response is actually a frequency. Everything is energy and everything is
right?
frequency, right? And when that is emotional response is too overwhelming to deal with at the moment, that frequency gets trapped in the body, actually as a ball of energy. And then when we have that feeling within us, and again, it's not conscious because our consciousness is less than 1% of our intelligence. That's kind of scary, isn't it? To think about that, we sometimes run on this computer. But these patterns are often reinforced and practiced over and over again, or they're reinforced by beliefs, or they're reinforced that believe other people's beliefs. It may not necessarily be ours. So when we practice something, it becomes a pattern like a habit.
Hmm.
So the nervous system itself sets the ceiling. Is that what you're saying, Elizabeth, here? And
So the
just
nervous
explaining
system sets the say it again, please?
the nervous system sets the ceiling for success or
So
whatever.
the nervous system responds. Our nervous system responds to what we are experiencing. And then those frequencies are held within us. And then what we see and we do and we partake in and the actions that we take can stop us or, give us hesitation or have us feel overwhelmed. Right. And after a while, it just kind of becomes an automatic response. Some people avoid going to parties because they think they don't
Yeah.
like big crowds, or they avoid taking that next step because they're afraid that they're going to succeed. Well,
Yeah.
it's not a head thing. It's the body has created those emotions, and that is what is limiting us. Make
So it's
sense?
kind of like there's a trail, kind of like the yellow brick road here,
A
where
little
you
bit.
have these paths we've traveled quite heavily throughout time, and it affects our decision making, our growth, and even our confidence level. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these patterns can show up in, your everyday life or even in business. So, and sometimes it can be very subtle, like we don't even pick up on that. It can be things like overgiving.
Mm.
How many successful women and men have you known where they give, 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 or they can't raise their prices, or, they go above and beyond. And that's great. I love that we go above and beyond because we want to give great customer service. And,
Right.
that's fine. But when you give more than you're willing to receive, or as you talked about before, you second guess your decisions, or you're afraid to be visible. Right?
Mhm.
You're afraid to make a video. I can't tell you how many people have said, "Oh, I'm so scared to make a video on, Facebook or whatever." No judgment, but there's something running underneath that. We end up often doing a lot of busy work because
Yeah.
that's avoidance behavior.
Yes, it is avoidance behavior.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
talking my language now, Elizabeth. I do a lot of work around
Raise my hand.
conflict and, second guessing yourself and, trying to be disciplined in the decisions that you're making. I am really like, this is a conversation after my own heart right now. But you said something that piqued my interest, and I would love for you to share a little bit more because so many women are taught to push harder when things aren't working. Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. That can actually keep them stuck. Can you share a little bit more about why that may not actually be the solution?
Absolutely, because even though you have this guidance system, if you will, to achieve, and there are many out there who just feel that urge, feel that need, know that they can achieve up in their minds, but that nervous system hits that ceiling, right? Because you still don't feel safe. You don't feel safe or in unfamiliar circumstances or something that you're overwhelmed. And your nervous system is telling you that you've hit a glass ceiling. So that's how we started out talking about you push and you push and you push, but it's like you're bumping your head up on that glass ceiling. It's not that you're not capable. You absolutely are. It's just that your system is trying to protect you from a program that is running on that you're not even aware of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
just had a thought. So many of us are engaged in so many different media things, or we're engaging in our cell phones, stuff that we really do have control of, and that is turn it off. And there are so many things that we can be talking about and learning about that can actually give us a more positive outlook on life. And you mentioned that these like memories or these patterns rather are stored in the body. It is a memory system. And how can women start recognizing what their body is trying to tell them? You said, we try and figure things out all the time. What can we do to recognize within self so that I can control this thing or I can change this thing and maybe form some better habits?
I love that question. So it's a one-word answer, but I will expand on it for sure. The word is awareness. Okay, so what does that mean? As a high functioning, high level, high achieving woman, and more than likely, you've always pushed yourself to achieve. And when I say yourself, many of your audience and probably all of us here, we pushed ourselves to achieve probably from a very young age. There was a reason why we did that. It might be different with each person, but perhaps we got attention for high achievement. Or perhaps we were afraid to disappoint someone. So we decided we had to overachieve or high achieving. So our body is always communicating. Let's go back to that word awareness again. It's communicating through tension, fatigue, sometimes discomfort, and sometimes it can be physical. It can be headaches, it can be lower back pain, that and sitting by a computer all days. Many of us, right? But those are the signals to look at first. And instead of pushing past them, it's about getting curious,
Mm.
right? Instead of attaching, feeling like we have to have the answers to everything, it's about asking questions. Do you know in business, and I know you all know this, when you're speaking to someone who might potentially be a client of yours or a customer of yours, what do you want to do? You want to get curious about them. You want to ask questions because you truly care about them. And you want to know, can I serve them with what I have to offer? And are we a good fit for one another? So you ask them lots of questions. Well, why do we stop ourselves from asking ourselves questions? Right? So we
Good
can
point.
ask, what is this feeling connected to? Or where do I feel this in my body? Just bringing that awareness in. Or something like, what just happened? What event just happened that seemed to trigger this feeling? Maybe you just got off a phone call with someone and it didn't go as well as planned. And then all of a sudden, you're stuck and you procrastinate and you find busy work and you do something else, but not what you truly needed to do. Or maybe you were afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody else. And we may not even be aware. So bringing in awareness. Thank you for letting me spend time on this because I think it was so important.
Awareness. Some people don't even know especially the difference, Venus and Mars, between men and women, the different sexes. I mean, to me, I'm always saying this is men, this is women, 360, frontal lobe, one thing. And I just think it's funny the differences sometimes, although it's difficult to communicate with each other. And it's even more difficult to even through your awareness because we're not aware of who we are, what we're doing, who we want to be when we grow up, Elizabeth. And I know Quincy and I talk about these topics too and what we do in our everyday business. So, what happens when someone begins to release these emotional patterns? They're looking for practical solutions here as they come to optimize her too. How can you share some insight on that?
Absolutely. Well, one of the first thing that I see immediately, within an hour, sometimes within minutes, is this sense of relief and this feeling of lightness. That's the first feedback I get all the time is I feel so much lighter. I don't understand. I I can't pinpoint it. I just feel lighter, right? Things that felt really heavy or confusing begin to feel clearer. It's that clarity, and all of a sudden a decision that you might have struggled with for a long time becomes very easy. Or opportunities, people, resources magically start to show up because you're beginning to show up as this higher energetic version of yourself. And what do? You attract success. You're not grabbing for it. You're not having to claw your way there. You're not having to push it. You're not having to work so hard. You basically pull it toward you. And
You attract it.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Magnetic.
I love that. Yeah, when When you were speaking, Elizabeth, it reminded me of a book I read a few years ago called Change Your Questions and Change Your Life
Mm.
by Marilee Adams. And it was a wonderful book because it really helped to make sure that you're asking questions from that place of curiosity that you were speaking about rather than the judgment, right, of already having the solution or the answer. And so I can truly appreciate that because I do think where maybe we're coming back to as a society is really prioritizing the act of active listening and being connected with people. So I'm really, really encouraged by the work that you're doing, and I definitely appreciate the way that you're making an impact and creating a better opportunity for all of us. When you think about for the woman who's listening and who may feel stuck right now, right? What do you think is one simple thing that she can do to start listening to herself differently?
I love that. So actually start pausing and asking, what am I actually feeling right now? There's a caveat without trying to fix it. I know. Did that not just make the hair stand on
Right?
the back
I'm like,
of
yep,
your
I'm
neck?
all in. It's like, oh, wait, don't solutionize?
Right, right, right. Exactly. Just pause for a moment and say, what am I actually feeling right now? And one other question that can be asked is, hmm, what's that about? And if we can ask a question or two like that, what am I feeling and what is that about without bringing no judgment to it? So many of us are so used to having to bring solutions all of the time, right? But instead of bringing the solutions up here, you're connecting with your heart and with your gut, right? Those we actually have 3 brains: your heart, your stomach, and then your thinking head up here. So when you start using your feelings and your intuition and your guidance, your inner divinity, you don't have to fix it because the answers will appear, the people will appear, the opportunities will appear. I'm not saying don't have a strategy and don't do anything, but maybe make that your base of your strategy and then go from there.
Not everything needs to be in an outline form. And sometimes I think, women holding themselves to that higher level, that ceiling, they're afraid to go beyond, this is as far as I can reach. So, with these emotional patterns that we're developing, and of course, we as women, we have hormone changes
Yeah.
that can really fluctuate and really cause some of these patterns to then drive stress and burnout. That's one of the things that I hear a lot of women talk about. Probably if I hear burnout one more time, I'm going to scream
Hmm.
because I think there's a better way to illustrate how we're feeling than to keep repeating the same things over and over again, because that in itself creates stress. What role does this work play in building resilience by changing these emotional patterns?
I love that. So, it's not about, as we've been talking about, it's not about pushing through. It's having this capacity to process and move through the experiences without becoming overwhelmed. And, I love resilience. That word has come up so much recently. It's resilience is a balance. It's think of it as a buoy that's floating in the water no matter how little or how big the waves are. It's still going to remain upright, but it might have to shift to the left or shift to the right or
Hmm.
forward or
Right.
backward, right?
Good
Yeah.
analogy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this work helps build that capacity so that these challenges don't feel so destabilizing, right? It it allows you to pivot. It allows you to be buoyant in building resilience. And I wanted to, if I might, I want to circle back to men and women and masculine and feminine. We all have masculine and feminine energy in our bodies. And, it's not just because we're female that we just think on a feminine train. The other thing too is that we were talking about, all of these strategies and, the plans that high achieving women have. It just occurred to me, guess what? We've possibly been trained in a masculine society, in
Sure.
masculine ways. And all of us, men and women, have forgotten to use our inner divinity and our intuition first, because that's that little light, that guidance system on the buoy that says, hey, I'm here in the water and there's a boat coming and don't hit me because here I am, because that's my inner guidance. Does that make sense?
It does,
It's
and it
interesting.
reminds me of, I was listening to a talk or something, and it was, all of the strategy that people may have, and, you have the outline, and you have maybe your SOP of the way you do your work, but more times than not, when you're making that final decision, you're going off your gut, right?
Absolutely.
And I do think at some point, maybe we got a little bit too gut heavy. We lost some of the strategy behind it. But I think we're seeing this balance between, yes, the strategy is important, but also there is the activity of exercising your gut and leaning into understanding those decisions and allowing for yourself to make those sort of gut based decisions, those intuition based decisions, and not running, being scared of those in a way
Hmm.
can really allow for you to maybe let go of sometimes of the control, because I think that's what we think we're keeping. And
Mhm.
Right.
in that control, you may actually be pushing things away because you're not allowing for things to flow in as much as you're focused on trying to keep things away.
That's
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pushing things away and you're holding on tight, right? Rather than allowing yourself to swim. And you're not going to sink.
Be
You're not going to
expansive.
sink.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're in a leadership role, right? The best thing that you can do for yourself is to learn all of this to balance so that you can share this with others. And right now we're in this energy and will be for a very long time where we're linking arms with others. It's not all about just about the individual. It's about all of us gathering together and being in leadership, because where there's many gathered together, there's power that makes an impact and changes can change the world, even in a small little world and just a little neighborhood, or in one other person's life. But stepping into that role of allowing yourself that balance is going to help those whom you work with as well.
Wow. Little steps, and we mentioned earlier, pause. How many times do we actually, and I just did it. How many times do we actually pause before we answer a question? Most times, it seems like we're so busy trying to spit something out to be intelligent or whatever it happens to be, that that awareness piece we're missing because we're not taking a moment of pause, reflection, whatever it happens to be, so that we can answer that question in a different manner. And the outcome could end up being monumentally different.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's, that pause. Do you know what that pause is? It's taking a breath. And
Hmm.
do you know most of us don't breathe during the day? We breathe enough to
Yeah.
survive, but what if you wanted to thrive? What if you took that step back for that moment and took a deep breath? It's like if you're going on a stage and you're going to speak in front of 4,000 people or whatever, and it could be something the first time you've ever done, or you've done it a million times. It's taking that deep breath and centering yourself and allowing that moment just to be, not to have to do.
Mhm. I think I've been sneaking in that breath in a very strategic way, because I'll have some people who at times they may ask me like these rapid fire questions. And I'll just stop for a moment and say, "Well, did you hear my question?" I'll say, "Well, I'm thinking," right? Like, if you give me a moment, and then also
Right.
maybe prioritize which question you want me to answer first, because if you just give me 4, I may answer 1 or 2. But I think being able to take that pause, take that breath, be very intentional and thoughtful about your response, rather than just, as we talked about a little bit earlier, if you're actively listening, you may need that moment to process the information and then reply with a thoughtful answer, as opposed to I only listened to maybe 65% of what you said because I was already forming the answer. So I could feel, to your point, smart bar because I'm quick in my response when I didn't
Right.
even hear the whole question, right?
But it might not be exactly what you want to come about. It's just you're so busy to be,
It's a knee-jerk
everything's so
reaction.
quick, knee jerk to so many different things.
Oh, yeah.
So, Elizabeth, and these are things I'm sure a lot of people want to hear is how can we then change self? Okay, awareness is a big deal. Taking pause, taking breaths, taking the time to consider the conversation. And also on the flip side, as the listener, to take a little bit of time to actually listen and understand that that person is taking a moment because they want to give you their best, deserve the best coming from them, and we deserve better conversation where we're actually engaging in dialogue, just not spitting things out. So what is one truth then, Elizabeth, that you may think of here for every woman and of course every man here that is on OH2 to understand about these emotional patterns and then what it can do to increase, heighten their potential?
Taking my breath.
There you go.
Yes.
Because when we do that, we don't just do surface level. We really come up with some things that often surprise us. So your patterns are not who you are. There's something learned. There are emotions that you've been holding on to. Either you created them or you possibly inherited them, or you may have even received these emotions while you were in your mother's womb. You may not have even asked for them. You then were not aware that you practice these emotions, and that became something that you learned. Those are your patterns. And they may have been reinforced by other people, as we talked about. They may be stories that you tell yourself. How many times have you gotten together with a friend or someone and they tell the story, an old story, over and over and over again? Well, you're creating a super highway and that's your default, but it may not be the truth. Or it may be a story that someone else told you because that was their truth.
Hmm.
Oh, you're not good enough, or you're never going to get that A, or, oh, why don't you go get a regular job? How many of your listeners ever heard that?
Now we hear from time to time when you try something creative, like, "Can't you find a regular job?"
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Albert Einstein, okay,
I
you
get it.
know?
I get it. So, once you begin to understand and tune into your emotions and the
Right.
patterns, then you have the ability to release them and you have the ability to shift them. And that's when true leadership and potential begins to open.
And, this thing about leadership, for some people, they think of leadership as this guy has to be a CEO for a major corporation. Leadership is you can be the leader in your and I'm sure I've said this on previous Optimizer 2 podcast. Leadership, you can be the leader of your own domicile in your family unit, right where you are in the community, in the neighborhood, at your church or at your local chamber, whatever it is, you're a part of it. And I think this conversation is just one of those another great, powerful moments where we're finding that growth isn't about just doing more. I can do more. I can work more hours. People would say to me, you're the hardest working loan officer at the bank. And I thought to myself that was a compliment. And then I realized it wasn't a compliment. I was working too many hours. I wasn't getting any further than anybody else. Sure, was within that top, 20 or whatever loan officers, but I wasn't really getting any more by working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock every night. I was actually burning out, which
Mhm.
I said I hear that over and over again, but it's true. That's in essence what it did to me. I just want people to be able to express themselves and how it's feeling themselves. And instead of using, terms that we hear over and over again, just to kind of like personalize it and use how something is really affecting you. And that's why I made the comment I did earlier. But sometimes it's about what's understanding what's beneath the surface. And that's why this whole process, Quincy and I, with the help of Tricia Soderstrom, who's our digital operations specialist, you'll see her here on Optimize Her too, but mainly behind the scenes. That's why we put this together to bring ladies like yourself, Elizabeth, so that we can educate, elevate, and empower women. Because, this breathing and doing these things when you're working out. For instance, some people hold their breath. Well, what are you really doing to your body when you're holding your breath? This conversation really is a true reflection of how people can change those patterns, those ceilings, by taking intentional type of actions like the pausing, like the breathing, and so forth that we discussed here. So this is really cool. I love what you're bringing here, Elizabeth, with your energy.
Thank you. It's I think it's a mission we all have, as I say, collectively, to help one another to make a bigger impact so that there's that ripple effect. Because
Yeah.
we may never know how we affect someone, but we
Yeah.
will make that impact, and then they go out and make so that's what I'm talking about is we're linking arms even if we never meet the person. So I appreciate what you all do here, having this beautiful platform to share information and hope and excitement, right? I love that.
Yeah. I can appreciate that because I've been in more and more rooms and I'm appreciating hearing people talking about locking arms with each other, right? And really being a support system for one another. So, Elizabeth, I would like to ask you if our listeners would want to link arms with you and learn more about what you have coming up or going on, how could they do that?
I love it. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. The easiest way is to go to my website, elizabethgiffordmaffei.com, and all of the ideas and solutions are there. I've got a podcast coming up very soon. I have a deck of coaching cards that they can utilize for themselves to take that breath and learn that awareness and that safety and that discernment and work through that. So lots of ways that I love to work with others. So I appreciate that.
Excellent, excellent.
Definitely. It's all about these connections. And we connect with you on Tuesdays with special guests on the first and third Tuesdays of each month here at Optimize Her 2 on YouTube. And that's at 7 p.m. And then Quincy and I are also doing live performances too. And you can catch us there. That's at 7:30 normally on Tuesdays. So we thank you very much. Please, please, please like, share, follow, and comment. Let us know if there's a subject or a topic you would like us to review. We're here for you, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Ladies, again, thank you so much. Quincy, always a pleasure.
Awesome, my
Elizabeth,
pleasure.
you were absolutely amazing, girl. Thank you, and stay well.